Even after adding Ryan Helsley and Andrew Kittredge, the Orioles bullpen could still use some help. So how about some under-the-radar sleeper arms? We'll talk about them coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Thursday, December 4th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we're going to continue our Orioles free agent wish list for this offseason. We've already done an episode about closers, and the O's got their closer, signing Ryan Helsley to a 2-year deal over the weekend. We already did an episode about kind of the high-leverage lefties and the high-leverage righty relievers out there. They did already reacquire Andrew Kittredge in a trade, but always some more room for those guys. And then today I wanted to talk about some really under-the-radar arms, some guys who you may know and have certainly pitched in the big leagues last season and had success, but aren't up there at the top of the list of these high-leverage guys that could be a cheap deal that could certainly help the Orioles bullpen in 2026. And that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Just download the FanDuel app today. So the way these wish list episodes work, if you haven't kept track of them or you're just joining us now, is I'll take out 6 players from a certain position and I'll rank them 6 to 1 in terms of how much I want the Orioles to sign these guys. It's not necessarily just these are the 6 best, most talented under-the-radar relievers. I also rank based on what they may cost in free agency and how they specifically might fit with the Orioles. So let's begin, again, under-the-radar relievers. They might not be as under-the-radar as you think. You might know some of these guys, but I think they all could help the Orioles. Number 6 on the list is 31-year-old right-handed reliever Jake Cousins, who more than likely will only command a minor league deal with an invite to big league spring training this offseason. Now, Cousins was non-tendered by the Yankees this offseason, so he was not set to hit free agency, but the Yankees made the non-tender move, so he is now a free agent. And for Cousins, he's not going to be able to pitch a full season. He got Tommy John surgery in June, which means best case scenario, maybe you get him back June. Probably more likely a good scenario is after the All-Star break in 2026. So it's a guy you could be signing to a 2-year minor league deal because you'd want that full season in 2027. Now, you'd certainly have to bank on the health of Jake Cousins. And you're wondering, Connor, why would you put a guy in here you might only at best get half a season from? Well, he was awesome for the Yankees when he was healthy in 2024. He threw 38 innings out of their bullpen, a 2.37 ERA with a 34% strikeout rate, 13% walk rate, a little concerning, but it's huge swing and miss stuff. It's a great sinker slider combination from Jake Cousins. It's this big sweeping slider that has almost a 50% swing and miss rate against it over the past 2 seasons. One of the biggest moving sweepers in all of Major League Baseball. And who knows exactly when he'll be back from getting TJ in June. But not only were his stats elite, everything under the hood was elite as well coming out of that Yankee bullpen in 2024. The whiffs, the chase, the hard hit numbers, all where you want to see him. So he's just a guy where I would take a chance. And again, most of these guys I'm going to talk about are guys who are probably going to sign 1-year major league deals this offseason. Maybe Cousins is a guy you would take a chance on a 2-year deal because he's going to miss about half of 2026 anyway. And you bank on him being, maybe solid this year and then really coming back to full strength in 2027 when hopefully there's a season and hopefully he can really help you out of the bullpen. Number 5 on my list is 33-year-old right-handed reliever Jacob Junis, who more than likely is going to command something like a 1-year, $5 million deal in free agency. Junis was a guy who was used as a starter very early in his career with the Royals for a while and then for the Giants in 2022. But in 2023, he was still with San Francisco, and they moved him to the bullpen. Now, he pitched out of kind of a swingman role, so he was doing a lot of multi-inning outings, and he was really good. He had a 3.87 ERA in 86 innings out of the pen in a lot of different roles. 26% strikeout rate to a crazy low 5% walk rate to a reliever. He just did not walk people, through a ton of strikes. And now he's kind of fully transitioned into a full-time reliever. And over the past 3 seasons, he's been a reliever with the Giants, the Brewers, and then he was with the Cleveland Guardians in 2025. He's put up an overall 3.24 ERA out of the bullpen in the last 3 seasons. And in the last 2 seasons in Milwaukee and Cleveland, and there was a little time with the Cincinnati Reds in there as well, he's a sub-3 ERA the last 2 years. Now, the strikeouts have gone down a bit. He's at around 20% the last 2 seasons, and the walk rate jumped up a bit, but it's still below league average. He's really just able to throw enough strikes that he hunts contact. He'll get the occasional strikeout. He's got the stuff, but he more hunts contact, but he's really good at suppressing hard contact. It's kind of a great value version of Tyler Rogers, who we talked about last week, where he's not striking a ton of guys out, but he's such a good reliever because every piece of contact he gives up is a pop-up or a slow grounder, basically, that generally turn into outs. Junis is the not as elite version, basically, and the throwing over the top instead of throwing submarine version of Tyler Rogers. Now, he does have these super low hard hit rates, and he's a very useful reliever. He's averaging, more than 60 innings per season out of the bullpen. He can regularly give you multiple innings. He's not just this one-inning guy. He's actually better against left-handed hitters than he is against righties, which takes him out of split situations and allows him to go multiple innings where you don't really have to match up with him, which gives you another weapon in your bullpen. I would say the one down part of him and why he's number 5, like Jake Cousins is number 6 because he's coming off TJ and you're not going to have him for probably at least 3 months this year. Junis is healthy, but he's down at number 5 because he kind of compares, he's kind of like a righty Keegan Aiken. And Keegan Aiken's, he kind of fell off a little bit this year, but before that, Keegan Aiken was a good reliever in the Orioles bullpen for a long time. But the big hit on Aiken is that all of his work generally has come, a lot of it is in multi-inning stints, but in low leverage spots. And that's the thing with Junis. Yes, he's had a sub-3 ERA over the past 2 seasons, but most of his work has come in low and maybe medium leverage, but barely any high leverage outings in those Milwaukee and Cincinnati and Cleveland bullpens. So you might get him, and he might certainly help your pen, but I don't know how you feel putting Jake Junis in there when you're up 5-3 in the top of the 8th inning. It's probably not the guy you're going to insert in, and that's maybe not what you'd be signing him to do anyway. It's a sinker, it's a changeup, it's a 4-seam fastball, but really it's the slider. He throws his slider 45% of the time. It gets really good swing and miss. Everything else kind of gets that soft contact. He's just really an intriguing reliever that I think I've talked about before on this show because he's been a free agent like each of the last couple of off seasons. Maybe this is the year the Orioles go and get him. But coming up next, we're going to talk about probably a little more well-known guys, or at least a couple guys who have a little more experience in high leverage situations with other teams, and maybe the Orioles could get them back to that point in their career. That's right after this. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets, that's usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. And really, for these World Cup venues, like maybe you've even been to these places like in Philly, but have never seen it for a soccer match. The seat view feature at Game Time is a game changer. You can literally see what the pitch will look like from your exact seat before you buy it. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. So for the Orioles, we continue on with the under-the-radar reliever wish list going into 2026 here in free agency. And number 4 on my list, 34-year-old right-handed pitcher Tyler Kinley, who will be turning 35 in January. He's probably going to command, again, these are kind of projections because these under-the-radar relievers rarely get actual contract projections from a lot of the publications out there. But again, something around a 1-year, $5 million major league deal is probably what he's going to get. And Kinley was just kind of toiling around with terrible stats for the Rockies for a while. Like there was something in there, and he was getting mostly big league spots with the terrible Rockies bullpen. And he was just kind of fine at his best and bad at his worst. And he continued doing the same thing with the Rockies in 2025. He had a 5.66 ERA in 48 innings out of their bullpen. And then kind of randomly, the Rockies traded him to the Atlanta Braves at the deadline this year. And the Braves were in a very similar season to the Orioles. They were pretty much out of it. They weren't into full sell, but they were looking to still upgrade in little places for the future. And all of a sudden, with Atlanta, he dominates. He posts a 0.72 ERA in 25 innings in the Braves bullpen in those 2 months after the trade deadline. He was their best reliever in the second half. They cut his walk rate in half. It was 12% with the Rockies. It was 6% with Atlanta. He started throwing more strikes, and they just upped his slider usage. The slider has always been the best pitch for Kinley. He was already throwing it about 65% of the time. Atlanta had him throw it 75% of the time, and it got even better, even more dominant. No hard hits, no barren. Like nobody could square that pitch up at all. Now, if you looked under the hood, his stuff was always pretty good when he was in Colorado. He always had high chase rates. He always had high swing and miss rates. He was also allowing low barrel rates, especially like the slider was always good. It was just the other pitches were kind of concerning. But Atlanta somehow made that slider even better. And the bad fastball he used to throw, like at 95 miles an hour, but kind of a dead zone fastball, not good movement, they improved that in a way to get it just a little bit more usable. And he ended up posting a 111 stuff plus in those 2 months with the Braves, which again is a very small sample size, but it's believable when you're in Colorado, pitching Colorado with the Rockies for that long, and then you go to a team that can actually make you better and actually has had success, and you pitch that well. It tells you that he's not going to be a 0.72 ERA guy long term, but whoever he signs with he's probably going to be a lot closer to the guy he was with the Braves than the guy he was with the Rockies. And if you look at a 111 stuff plus, that puts him near the top of the list of just the general body of non-closer free agent relievers who are available this offseason. And that's a pretty good steal, which is why it's confusing that Atlanta could have kept him around. There was a $5.5 million team option on Kinley's contract for 2026. The Braves aren't really, fighting and struggling for spending money on payroll. They could have easily just picked up $5.5 million for a guy who, again, gave them a 0.72 ERA in 25 innings that they traded for at the deadline. And weirdly, they declined his option along with Pierce Johnson, who would have been a pretty good reliever for them for the past couple of years. They declined his option too and made him a free agent early. So Kinley, we weren't even expecting to be in the free agent pool. And here he is, like free from Colorado, looking great in Atlanta. And he's just out there for anyone to get. I understand he's going to be 35 and it's a half season of being good, but he's never had this success. I feel pretty confident he's going to have a couple seasons of success. Maybe it makes you worry because Atlanta did decline a pretty cheap option about why in the world they would do that when he was so good. But this is kind of a tantalizing arm that you could add to the bullpen for pretty cheap. Number 3 on my list, I think we start to get to guys you might know a little bit better. This is 29-year-old right-hander Michael Kopech, who will be 30 in April. He does have some contract projections on him. His projection is signing a 1-year, $7.5 million contract this offseason. Now, you may know Kopech from him being a former tippy-top prospect when he was in the White Sox system, but never being able to stay healthy. He had a very much Dylan Bundy-like rise through the minor leagues where everybody always knew the talent was there. He was always the top pitching prospect in the system, but he was just injured year after year after year. And the injuries continued into this year. He was traded from the White Sox to the Dodgers at last year's deadline, pitched okay down the stretch with the Dodgers, and then came into spring training with some arm inflammation this year and did not really come back until June. Now, when he came back, he was good. He had a 2.45 ERA in 11 innings, and then he tore his meniscus. So he had to miss some more times. Now, tearing your meniscus is probably the, I guess you could say, best thing you can tear in your knee. It has the quickest recovery time. So he did try to come back again in September, but he suffered some more knee inflammation, probably came back a little too early, pitched a couple of times, and then he was done for the year, so did not get to pitch for the Dodgers as they went on to win their second straight World Series. Now, despite the knee issue, it seems like at this point the arm is healthy, even after the little inflammation he had that forced him to miss a couple of months at the beginning of the year. But the question is still there because the guy with so long a history of arm injuries in both the minors and majors. And even if it was a small thing that didn't impede him too much this year, it popped up again in 2025, which makes you think it could pop up again in 2026. But when he's on the mound, I mean, the elite stuff is there. It's a fastball that, sits a four-seamer 98 to 99 miles an hour with 18 inches of induced vertical break. It's one of the best four-seam fastballs in all of Major League Baseball. Nobody can hit that pitch. It's dominant. He's got a nasty 91-mile-per-hour cutter, plus a slider and a changeup to go with it. And when he is healthy, when he was healthy in 2024 with the Dodgers, he had a 127 stuff plus. That was fifth in Major League Baseball. The only pitchers last year who had better raw stuff than Kopech were Mason Miller, Ben Joyce, there was 105 for the Angels, Emmanuel Clase, we'll never see him pitch again, but he was very good, and the newest Oriole, Ryan Helsley. Those are the only four pitchers with a better stuff than Kopech. Now, the issue is he sometimes doesn't know where it's going. Like, he was a high-leverage reliever for the Dodgers in 2024 and into the playoffs, but he still was running like an 11 to 12% walk rate, which is, Sir Anthony Dominguez ran almost a 14% walk rate, and it was still a higher leverage reliever for the Blue Jays who played in the World Series. So when your stuff is as good as it is for guys like Dominguez and guys like Kopech, you can still be successful with a walk rate that high, but it does get him into trouble from time to time. The difference is Dominguez has been very, very healthy throughout his career. Kopech has been the exact opposite. And that, I think, is the bigger red flag, the much bigger red flag than the walk issues. You can live with the walks because the strikeouts and the stuff is there. What you have to consider is how much are you investing in him? If you're only giving him a 1-year deal, it's obviously not a huge investment. But if he's someone who's looking for multiple years, you think long and hard because of the long injury history. But he's still only 29. There's so much stuff in there. If you could keep him healthy even for maybe 50 innings, and hopefully some of those being in the playoffs in 2026, Kopech would be a very strong investment to really, really help out your bullpen. And you could kind of get him on the cheap at this point in his career. But these last two pitches, a little older, but a little healthier and a little more generally experienced than Michael Kopech. We know them both well for different reasons. I'll give you the top two on my under-the-radar reliever wish list coming up after this. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines, they adjust instantly, and the player props update as these guys start to heat up. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. At FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. So for the Orioles, we get to the top two in my wish list for free agent under-the-radar relievers. And number two on my list is a name we know very well. It is 35-year-old right-hander Shawn Armstrong, who will probably command, again, something around a 1-year, $5 million deal this offseason. Our old friend Shawn, who pitched for the Orioles for a few years during the dark days of the rebuild, was then traded to the Rays at the 2021 trade deadline. Now, the Rays were kind of able to fix him. Like, he certainly had his flashes in Baltimore, but the Rays took him to a different level. And in 2023, Armstrong had a 1.38 ERA in 52 innings pitched out of the Rays bullpen. Now, he was not able to do that again in 2024. He was kind of bad with the Rays. He bounced around a bit with 3 teams, but he signed a very cheap 1-year deal with the Rangers last offseason, and he really recovered. He had a career-high 74 innings. He ran a 26% strikeout rate, just a 7% walk rate. He posted a 2.31 ERA in those 74 innings. It was a really, really low 34% hard hit rate. He had solid strikeout numbers. He gave up soft contact. He was running a 196 BABIP. League averages around 270, 280. So there was definitely some good luck involved for Armstrong. He had one of the 5 lowest BABIPs against him of any pitcher in Major League Baseball this year. So that number is going to go up, which means his stats are going to get a little bit worse just due to some luck evening out. But, his four-seam fastball sitting 94 was getting good swing and miss on it. The cutter and the sinker got a lot of soft contact. And then he has a sweeper as well. He used it to kind of hunt the swing and miss and hunt the strikeout. And lefties can get to him from time to time, but right-handed batters hit just 118 against Armstrong this season. That was the lowest batting average against by right-handed hitter against any reliever who faced at least 100 right-handed hitters this season. Like, among guys who stayed in the bullpen for most of the year, nobody was better against right-handed hitters than Shawn Armstrong. And that's really something. And again, he's just been reliable. Like, even when he bounced around and wasn't great in 2024, he still stayed healthy and stayed on the mound. And he's been doing that since he was with the Orioles the first time. He was brought in by Mike Elias, or was here with Mike Elias back then. It's not gigantic stuff, but it's good stuff. He's reliable. He can pitch anywhere from the 5th to the 8th inning if you need him to. I don't know. Shawn Armstrong's grown on me more and more since he left the Orioles. And I think it would be a nice reunion to add just a good solid piece to this bullpen. But number one on my wish list is someone I was begging for the Orioles to trade for at the 2024 trade deadline. They did not. And instead, he was acquired by the Yankees. And that is 34-year-old right-handed pitcher Mark Leiter Jr., who will turn 35 in March. And again, probably going to get something around a 1-year, $5 million deal in free agency. Now, Leiter was not scheduled to be a free agent this offseason. When the Yankees got him at the 24 deadline, he had multiple years of team control beyond that trade. But the Yankees, just like they did with Jake Cousins, non-tendered Leiter this offseason and sent him into free agency early. Now, he came over from the Cubs at the 2024 deadline, and he still doesn't give up hard contact. His hard hit rate against is 33%. That's super low, and it's because of this incredible splitter that he throws. The splitter had a 43% swing and miss rate on it this year. It was even better last year. This is the almost sole reason why I wanted the Orioles to get Leiter last season. Opponents hit .099 against his splitter in 2024 with a ton of swing and miss. Also throws a curveball that gets swing and miss. His fastball is kind of but he can almost use it as a surprise pitch for guys because he throws so many splitters and then really curveballs at times before he even throws his fastball. So he can get away with it. I mean, that's why he's not an elite reliever, is because he doesn't have the good fastball. And again, like, his ERA was over 4 in the year and a half with the Yankees, but his FIP, his fielding independent pitching, was always much lower, which is a better predictor of future success. I just think the splitter is so good. At times, it's Felix Bautista level of a splitter that he throws so much movement. It doesn't have terrible command of it either. Like, he can throw it for a strike at times when he's really rolling. It's just so good that he could break back out and be the reliever we saw at times in 2024. And again, there was some real bad luck. Like, this is a guy who doesn't give up hard contact, but he allowed a 374 BABIP, batting average on balls in play, in 2025. As I just mentioned for Armstrong, his was 196. He was getting crazy good luck. Leiter at 374 was getting crazy bad luck. That was the 3rd highest BABIP allowed by any big league reliever who threw at least 40 innings in 2025. So while Armstrong, it's like, hey, he had a great year, but he'll probably regress to the mean a little bit. Leiter's going to have some positive regression in 2026 towards the mean, because you're not going to get that unlucky with these soft batted balls he gives up again. So if he's able to keep the feel of his splitter, which he's always had, it allows him to be a lot better against left-handed hitters, which, he doesn't have a huge splits thing either, which is helpful for a guy with a splitter. It's kind of going to be the pitch of the year, people are thinking, in 2026. It was certainly the pitch of this year's postseason. I just think the stuff for Mark Leiter is so good. Just really specifically the splitter. I would be willing to bet on one pitch. And maybe it doesn't work out, but like, he gets a lot of ground balls. He gives up soft contact. He has a pitch in that splitter that gets elite swing and miss. And even the curveball does too. I mean, maybe the Orioles can revamp his fastball a little bit. Like, he's been throwing a sinker. It's not very good. He's thrown a 4-seamer in the past, so maybe they can go back to that instead. That could be something that's helpful. Either way, I would just buy in on Mark Leiter. I wanted to buy in on him at the deadline in 2024. The Yankees did it instead. in the long run, didn't work out. Maybe they'll try to bring him back on a lesser deal, but I think this is where the Orioles can swoop in and get this guy for much cheaper than it would have been to trade prospects for him a year and a half ago and still have him hopefully help the 2026 Orioles bullpen. But that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have some under the radar relievers that's kind of my last reliever wish list episode that I haven't mentioned in the 3 episodes, just put them right here in the YouTube comments. Let me know other guys I may have missed that you want the Orioles to go after. And while you're there, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. We are pushing slowly towards 10,000 subscribers on the channel. If we can get to 10,000 subscribers by the new year, by January 1st, I'm going to do a cool giveaway here on the show for subscribers only. So make sure to subscribe to YouTube. Also, if you're a listener, though, make sure to follow the show, subscribe to the show. Haven't gotten a lot of ratings and reviews yet, whether you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Those ratings and reviews really help out the show. So if you could do that, one of those, that would be great. And if you have feedback for the podcast, you want to ask a question, you want to talk some ball, of course, you can always email me, lockedonorioles@gmail.com. And you can also send in some mailbag questions because we're going to be doing some live evening episodes next week as the winter meetings are going on in Orlando, Florida. I'll still be here in Baltimore, but going to want to react to the news of the day and also hopefully some Orioles news that happens, some signings, some trades during the winter meetings when things always start to heat up in the offseason. But I'll generally keep a segment of those shows during the evening to answer some mailbag questions as well. I'll do some live, but also we'll take some through the email that I'll answer to. So make sure to get those in. But either way, still going to be back tomorrow, unless we get some Orioles news between now and then. Planning on taking a look at some trade candidates who are out there, right? We've talked about the free agent starting pitchers on Monday. We talked about those top guys. On Wednesday's episode, we talked about the mid-rotation guys. But something the Orioles have done in the past, whether it's Corbin Burns or Trevor Rogers or others, is acquired good starting pitching via trade. And it's something Mike Elias is comfortable doing and would not be surprised if he does it again this offseason. So we'll talk about the starting pitchers who are available out there via trade and which ones would fit best in Baltimore and what they might cost. That's coming up on tomorrow's episode. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.